Hi Elizabeth, how are you?
Hi.
Hi Elizabeth, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. Not too bad at all. I'm going to take this headphone off because I actually thought I was going to be recording through the headset, but oh no, still can't.
Oh, it
There we
won't
go.
work?
Yeah,
Okay.
can you hear me? Yes,
Yeah,
perfect.
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me? Because this is the first time I've used this headset, so.
No, that's perfect. Can hear you very
Oh,
clearly. It was my
perfect.
mistake. I'd not set it up properly this end. I was still going through the internal mic and the external mic, so we're up and running.
Excellent. Excellent, excellent.
So this is quite awkward in a way because normally when I do a hangout, we've spoken in advance. We've got an idea about what it is that we're going to talk about and what we're going to discuss and what questions we're going to ask. So it's often a little staged. But I think on this occasion, other than the fact that we're both participating in the same MOOC and we both thought it was a good idea to try and catch up on a weekly basis. To discuss what we've perhaps discovered, but I think more importantly, from my perspective, to make sure that I actually finish a MOOC for once, it would be useful to have that commitment to another human being to make sure that I actually stuck with it. So thank you for being that other person.
Oh, you're welcome. And I agree. Having somebody else that you're responsible to makes a huge difference. I just finished a MOOC that I'm pretty sure I would have quit on week one when I realized that, I don't know, 70, 80% of everybody there was a PhD or
Right.
had been a teacher for 20 years, and I'm like, I do training in the workplace, but I'm interested in this course. But they really pulled through. They were a great team. They gave me a lot of feedback that was insightful, and they never made me feel like I was too far behind the ball. Like they give me little hints of things, or not tell me how, but just give me the hints that I needed to really pull through instead of dropping, as
Yeah,
I
I've
would
got
have done.
I've got a couple of online friends that a lady that's based out in Canada as well, and she's recently I think done a MOOC on gamification. And she did it with a group of work colleagues as well. So people that she was actually physically working with in a face-to-face environment, they went away and did their studying online, and then I believe that she sort of engineered them to actually meet up and have conversations face-to-face. And she said that was really, really helpful. So we'll see how it goes. So
Okay.
it was quite interesting to hear that I read on one of your probably your Google Plus profile or something like that you're also in workplace learning as well, and so am I. And I get the feeling that a lot of the people that are on the Google Media MOOC are obviously very overtly involved in the media world. But and I was slightly conscious that although I'm although I'm going on the MOOC, I'm not necessarily going on it in order to be a better media person, in order to perhaps improve to look at what Google does and how it does it and what it doesn't do and why it doesn't do it, to try and bring that value back into workplace learning. So it was pure coincidence, I think, but quite lucky that as you've agreed to sort of be my other party in this, that you also work in a very similar field, and I think that the chances of that were probably quite well.
Yeah, I think it worked out very well, and yeah, it probably was very slim odds. We're breaking up a little bit. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can, yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, a little strange. On the side, I do some blogging, and I do blog for a company, but it's a new thing for me. So I have a very big interest in media, but it recently occurred to me that Google runs my life, and I don't know when it started. Probably when I got my first Android, but Google runs my life, and it's been this real eye opener. And the course came at a perfect time, and it's like, wow, I do everything. We do this through Google. My emails through Google, my blogs through Google, my work blog, well, my analytics for my work blog is through Google. Everything I do, if there's a Google option, it seems to be what my life goes through.
Yeah, yeah,
and
ditto as well.
yeah, and I find that it's really interesting. So I'm really enjoying this course from the aspect that how did this company get to be what it is? How did it get to be that it's going to run my life? Because I can't imagine a day going by an hour going by that Google didn't touch my life somehow. Even when I sleep, my Android is next to me, letting me know when things happen, all driven by Google. So I think this is going to be very interesting. I might not think what would Google do, but I do think what does Google do, and how does it affect me. So I think yeah, it's an interesting time to be living. Google is.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons that I was attracted to it was that for me, and I don't know, I get the feeling that this is kind of a global issue amongst learning and development and workplace learning professionals, but there seems to be a tradition around how workplace training and learning is delivered. There's that kind of cookie cutter approach that classroom training, sheep dipping people through courses. We expect them to somehow expect them to remember that knowledge a week, a month, 6 months down the line, or we cookie cutter a very similar approach, but through learning management systems, through e-learning. And for probably about the past maybe 6 or 7 years since I really started to get into how technology can help us do our jobs better and live better, I've wanted to challenge that sort of paradigm about the traditional approach to learning and development. And for me, I mean, who better to try and, I won't say match, but who better to take hints and tips of than from a company that's incredibly young, and pretty much every traditional approach to doing things that we might have believed were absolutely set in stone, such as newsprint, and I don't want to steal week two's thunder, but Google has kind of ripped the rule book up a little bit, thrown it away, and not only shown that we can do something differently, but actually that we can do something differently and in many, many ways far better than the traditional method. So I want to try and tap into how Google's done what it's done rather than what it's done, and try and use some of those examples back within my organisation and other organisations I work with to say, we don't, just because we've always done it this way doesn't mean to say we can't do it differently. Look how Google have done it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Google really has some strong methods, strong ways, the way they've improved everything. Everything. I mean, just they have ripped up every rule book and anything they've touched. And now they are touching learning management systems. They
Yes.
are now test driving them. And I think and that's going to be another exciting thing. It's really going to flip training into a more blended training method. Standing in front of a class and being the sage on stage is so over. It needs to be. It didn't work anytime in the last 1,000 years. It does not work. Today, it's not going to. We cannot treat people like they are factory workers, building a car,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
treat education like it's that car that everybody, does their little part on and sends it through. It doesn't work like that. And we've got 100 years of doing this that show it doesn't work. People don't think for themselves. They don't do for themselves. They don't understand. They don't know how to study. They don't know how to think rationally. All those things that are gone, and we now have an opportunity to bring it back by flipping education, by flipping our methods we do. I think blended learning will be a great way because it really does get these synchronistic learning opportunities like we're taking right now, in addition to the asynchronous learning opportunities that we have through the website. And that's what training needs to be. Sit at your desk or sit at home, sit on the train or the bus or whatever you take to get to work, watch your little video, get your information, and then get somewhere and debate and discuss and think about and get passionate about ideas and really get that learning that's deep and intrinsic. Anyway, I'm a little excited about it.
I can tell. What's been your biggest surprise or key learning point, or biggest thing that you really, if you could only take one thing away from week one and everything else you'd be forced to forget, what would that be? Or what's been your biggest surprise from week one?
My biggest surprise from week one. Oh, it's a really It's a really good question. I'm
Or
just
your,
thinking of
or
people
your
in the back
key
of my
learning
notes.
point?
My key learning points, really came back to that is everything Googleized? Like, have we really changed everything and made it, you know, how it affects our relationship with our personal information, how it impacts the infrastructure of our companies, our governments, everything. Like Google's just so into everything, and that's really what I took out of it. That it wasn't just my personal little world that it seemed to run. Google is getting into everything, and if we can get that power and that those products and that energy and harness it into a proper learning management system and apply it properly to a team of people, we can give people the proper tools to do their job and do their job well. Just, you know, the little Google updates, the little reminders, did you do this? Have you done that? Hey,
Yes.
Google Hangout. Everybody who's done the class 6 months ago is going to get together and plug their headset into the computer and chit chat for half an hour on how the course is still impacting their life to make sure it is, so that we know as trainers that what we did really mattered. One of the most frustrating things I've found about being a trainer is that you train someone today and 5 days later they can't tell you what you trained them on. And it's like, really? Did I did I waste my time? Did I use the wrong training method? Were you too distracted? What was going on? Obviously
I
somebody
think
failed you.
I think in this day and age I mean we should expect that. I mean, if we look at Ebbinghouse's research into the forgetting curve, and I know that there's some people who challenge the specific way that he researched it, but I mean, he showed that 79% of information is lost within 30 days unless it's really, really regularly practiced and put into practice and applied and honed. And dare I say it, a lot of the training that that we deliver in the workplace, we deliver it just in case people need it. We don't deliver it just in time. So we'll deliver interviewing skills training, or we'll deliver some software training
Yeah.
just in case that person ever needs it. And of course that person might need it the following day, and they might need it quite regularly, but I think the chances of that are quite slim. We often deliver things just because we know they're probably going to need it at some point in time. So when you say they can't remember it 5 days down the line, I don't think that should surprise anybody, given the amount of research there is into the forgetting curve.
And it doesn't surprise. It disappoints me, but it doesn't really surprise me. I had taken a course one day on training adults, and it was one that was ironically held in a very dark, warm, stuffy room. And the woman was standing in front of us telling us that you should be interactive, your room should be comfortable, you shouldn't be presenting too late in the day, people should be, comfortable, they should be rested, they should be fed, they should have, a water available to them. All these things that you should have, and not one thing was provided. It
Yeah.
was the absolute irony. Now, have I forgotten it? No. Have I forgotten when she said 30% of adults will actually take away and remember something from an interactive, like a really truly interactive class, 6 months down from there? I can believe it, because it's the one thing I remember was your classroom environment should be very comfortable, not dark, not hot, not stuffy, not this, not that, and everything is what it was. And really, that's the only thing I remember from her class. Other than I nearly fell asleep because it was so dark and warm and all these things.
I think the biggest surprise for me from week one was it was. I mean, there were lots of things that were covered, and I've blogged a brief recap of week one. But I think the biggest surprise was a statistic that was quoted in one of the later videos in week one, and it was a statistic that said when Google started up, it handled 10,000 search inquiries in a day.
Yeah.
It now handles 10,000 search inquiries in a third of a second. And there's no matter how many times I repeat that statistic back to myself, I can't wrap my head around how, first of all, that it can do it, how in a relatively short period of time, that company has been able to scale, and not only scale in terms of being able to do what it used to do, but faster, but actually being able to do what it used to do faster and so much more as well. So I think there's a lesson in there for for people like you and I, and perhaps who are working for organisations that think this is almost, trying to change workplace learning, trying to change what we do and how we do it. It's too big, it's too established, it's too set in its ways. I think, again, there's another example there. We're not trying to be Google. We don't have that skill set. We don't have that infrastructure. But I think to hold them up and say, well, hang on, here's a company that 10 years ago was able to do this in this amount of time, and now it's able to do this in that amount of time, I think might just inspire people to think, actually, changing the way we deliver training in the workplace, changing the way that we expect people to perform in the workplace isn't perhaps the immovable object or the unreachable peak that we might think it is.
I think Google does one thing really well for its people. They said that 80% of the time you focus on Google-oriented work, the stuff that has to get done, and 20% of the time you focus on your passion, which you share, and people work on teams, and I think that has to change the whole culture of a company so that people, one, want to work together. It's not a dog-eat-dog. It's a true team environment. People strive to do more. They catch that little bit that they're really passionate about, and then they pull it into that 20% of their time, which really, okay, it's 10 hours a week for most workforces. That you would focus on something, not even 8 hours or 4 hours, no, 8 hours, 8 hours for most workforces, that you would spend doing something that you were really passionate about. And it wouldn't matter what workforce you're in, whether you were in retail or you were in sales or you were in manufacturing or tech, whatever. But if you had that 8 hours a week where you could focus on something you really loved, that you really wanted to figure out, how much happier would your staff be? How much more inclined would they be to take in training? Not take training because they have to, but take training because they want. That's a key part. To learn and understand and really benefit the best way they can from it. I think they hit the right way to deal with people, which is why everything has gone so well for them, and how they've expanded so fast and everything. Yeah.
Good model. I'm very conscious about keeping these Hangouts down to a fairly short time frame, so we say focused. Week 2, looking forward to it?
I am. I was looking at it just before you called because I thought it was important to kind of look ahead a little bit. I've not jumped into it. I wanted to, have our chance to chat about this first. But I am looking forward to it. I'm intrigued. I want to know more about this book project. I really want to know more about what the issues are, and is it, will it give everybody the opportunity to have access to books, or will only some people have access to the books? Will your access to books be determined by your search model, like how you search and what you're looking for? So will I have access to a book on zoology when the only thing I really research into is education at the moment? Like, I really want to know how it's going to work. Will there be levels of what I can access? I want to know it all. I'm intrigued.
Well, I think now that we've got this week 1 Hangout out of the way, we can both dive into week 2, and let's find out what it's all about.
Excellent. Sounds great.
Elizabeth, thank you very much for joining me from, is it Nova Scotia?
It is.
It is. I'm from Nova Scotia all the way to not so sunny UK, and hopefully we'll chat more or less this time next week. Fingers crossed.
Sounds good.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.
You too. Bye bye.